Hello, Neogenians. Welcome to Dawn of the New Earth. Today, we're taking a deeper look at the book called Third Enoch and the transformation of Enoch into the angel Metatron. And we're going to see how this is kind of a proto-blueprint for how human beings can become angelic or divine. We're going to see how this connects to Kabbalah and the Tree of Life and the Hebrew letters that symbolically structure reality, and how this can be applied to understand how to have personal transformation. It's going to be really good. I already put out a video on Third Enoch and Metatron, but we're going to take even a closer look right here, right now. So welcome to the channel, my friends. And as always, remember, this is way more than a channel. We are a revolution of consciousness here to wake the world the hell up. So make sure you hit like and subscribe and share, so we can make higher consciousness go viral and spread this like fire. If you want to help out even more, become a member on YouTube or Patreon. You get access to a lot of great stuff like free downloads on alchemy, Kabbalah, ritual work, etc. You also get access to our members only videos. There are so many of them, and they're really good. And it helps out the channel a lot. I really appreciate it. You can also check out my books. I am a Neogenian, and I've written a 5-book series on the Neogenian system. And if you're looking for a free way to support, follow me over on Spotify. I am on Spotify, and it's a great way to reach more people. Whole untapped audience over there. So if you got a Spotify account, go subscribe or follow. It's completely free to follow me there. Links to do all those things, my books, Spotify, etc. They're in the description of this video. Okay, but let's get started. We are talking about Third Enoch and how to become an angel. Now, how is this related? Well, most people have heard of the Book of Enoch. And the Book of Enoch is the one with the Watchers and the Nephilim, the cannibal giants, all that stuff. That's the book that most people have heard of. But there's also Second Enoch and Third Enoch. It's a trilogy like Star Wars. Think of it like A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. And in that trilogy, Luke goes through a transformation. He starts off as a normal person, but by the end of the trilogy, he's a Jedi. And that's kind of how it goes, right? In the first Star Wars movie, he's just a regular old guy. Then the second one, he begins his training. And in the third, he's a full-fledged Master Jedi. The 3 books of Enoch are a bit like that. In First Enoch, it's about the Nephilim and all that, but it's also revealed in First Enoch that Enoch is a Messiah figure. So Enoch gets told that he is a Messiah figure, like Luke being told that he's a Jedi. In Second Enoch, it describes his ascent through the 7 heavens, meeting God face to face and beginning his transformation. So kind of like his training, he goes through these different levels of heaven, meets God, and begins a transformation. And then finally, in Third Enoch, this one tells you what he became. His transformation is complete. He is now Metatron, which is an extremely powerful being. Not only is he an angel, but he's called the Lesser Yahweh, like the lesser God. And he's nearly at divine godlike status, but he's an angel. And we're going to find that in Third Enoch, it gives a detailed explanation of his transformation into Metatron. But the thing is that we can take that pattern and apply it to us. Because if Enoch can become an angel, so can you. Now, let's talk about this. We're also going to see how this connects to Kabbalah. And we've also been talking lately about how in the infancy gospel of Thomas, Jesus as a child begins to teach the alphabet, but the alphabet not as like just letters, but as allegorically describing the code of reality, the logos, the word, the programming language of existence. And we're going to find that reflected in here as well. So let's get started. We're going to crack open Third Enoch. And Third Enoch is about a vision given to the prophet Ishmael. So in First and Second Enoch, it's Enoch who is taken up to heaven and having the visions. In Third Enoch, it's Ishmael having the visions, and Metatron/Enoch is the one accompanying and guiding Ishmael. So Ishmael is basically going through what Enoch went through in book 1. And in book 1, Enoch was terrified, and Ishmael is terrified. And so Metatron is like, hey, man, I've done this all before. Let me tell you what's going on. Also, try not to freak out about the thousands of eyes that cover my body. So let's take a look at what this says here. Ishmael said, Metatron, the prince of the presence, said to me, before he appointed me to attend the throne of glory, the Holy One, blessed be he, opened to me, and this is important, 300,000 gates of understanding, 300,000 gates of subtlety, 300,000 gates of life, 300,000 gates of grace and loving kindness, 300,000 of each of these, of love, of Torah, of meekness, of maintenance, of mercy, and fear of heaven. So we have understanding, subtlety, grace and loving kindness, love, Torah, meekness, maintenance, mercy, and fear of heaven. So if we take a look at this, first of all, what is this talking about here? Well, it's going to explain a little further in just a moment. But we're talking about aspects of the mind, aspects of consciousness, understanding, love, mercy, Torah, which is like understanding the mysteries. And so how many do we have here as well? We have understanding, we have subtlety, we have life, we have grace and loving kindness, love, Torah, meekness, maintenance, mercy, fear of heaven. So we have a total of 10 gates. Well, 300,000 gates, but there's 10. And so why does this matter? Well, what we're going to see here is this is before we had the tree of life and the Sephirots and things like that. But this is very close. This is a proto version of that, essentially. So if we look at the tree of life, we have 10 Sephirot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I didn't do them in order, but you get the idea. And what these represent, these spheres or Sephirot, what they represent are aspects of consciousness. And the whole idea is that this is a model of consciousness, and by organizing these aspects of consciousness, you attain higher and higher and higher levels of consciousness, going from human consciousness to angelic consciousness to God tier consciousness. And in this book of Enoch, we have a very sort of we start to see glimpses of this there. We have these 10 gates, like the 10 Sephirot, but the Sephirot is a bit different. Right now, we just have, these gates are opening. Whereas in the tree of life, it's very much about balance. It's not just this linear, increasing, but it's also about balance as well. So we have that balance going on there. But there's more. So Metatron continues and says, in that hour, the Holy One, blessed be he, added in me wisdom unto wisdom, understanding unto understanding, subtlety unto subtlety, knowledge unto knowledge, mercy unto mercy, instruction unto instruction, love unto love, and loving kindness, goodness, brilliance, beauty, splendor. And I was honored and adorned with all these good and praiseworthy things more than all the children of heaven. Now, this is not a one-to-one correspondence with what we now look at in the modern era as the tree of life, but you'll notice a lot of common faculties here. So let's see. We have, understanding. Well, understanding is right here. That's binah, which is understanding. Let's see what else. Wisdom unto wisdom. Wisdom is right here. Chokhmah. This is wisdom. Knowledge unto knowledge. Knowledge is at the center here. It's a hidden sphere called da'at, which means knowledge, which is the synthesis of understanding and wisdom into knowledge. Mercy unto mercy. Chesed, this is mercy right here. And let's see. Power unto power and strength unto strength. This is gevura, which is severity or power. What else do we have? Beauty unto beauty. Tiferet is literally beauty. Let's see what else. Splendor unto splendor, which is hod, which literally means splendor. Now, Netzach can mean victory or eternity. It doesn't directly say like victory or eternity, but you know, that could perhaps be understood as life, perhaps. But anyways, it doesn't nail, it's not like a one-to-one, it's not a perfect list of what we know today, but this is more of a, you know, the tree of life as we look at it today was really I think in 1600s is where it really started to formulate with in that era. But you can see, okay, so there's a lot. There's wisdom, there's understanding, there's knowledge, there's power, there's mercy, there's beauty, there's splendor. And yes, we don't really have an exact one for Netzach, or Yesod, which is foundation, or Malchut, which is kingdom, or Keter, which is crown. Though later we will see that Metatron is crowned. Metatron is literally given a crown, and Keter means crown. Okay? So this is basically a model of consciousness, and the idea is that you need to develop these levels of consciousness to reach higher and higher levels of understanding and knowledge. And we all start out at the very bottom at Malchut. And so we begin to go up the various states of consciousness, whereas Malchut is physical reality or the sensory world or behavioral patterns. Yesod is like the unconscious and intuition and the shadow self. Hod is left brain, intellect, logic. Netzach is right brain, emotion. Tiferet is the ego, the center of awareness. Gevura is our sense of justice and severity. Chesed is our sense of empathy and love. Binah is understanding, which is about structure and logic in a higher order level when it comes to understanding the divine. And Chokhmah is about like information itself, and Keter is pure unity. And Da'at, these three are more difficult to understand right away because it's across what's known as the abyss, and Da'at is knowledge, which is necessary to cross the abyss. In Gnostic terms, this would be gnosis. In Neogenian terms, this would be hyper-awareness. So in Kabbalah, this is Da'at. In Neogenian system, it is hyper-awareness. In Gnosticism, this area is gnosis, which allows one to reach the higher divine triad, or the supernal triad. But anyway, what I'm trying to get across here is basically we have Metatron explaining these powers that allowed him to transform. And we see that reflected in the tree of life. Not in an exact way. This is a very early conceptual precursor to that. So now let's talk more about this. He says, and I was raised up and enlarged to the size of the length and width of the world. And he, meaning God, caused 72 wings to grow on me, 36 on each side, and each wing was as the whole world. And he fixed on me 365 eyes. Each eye was as the great luminary. And he left no kind of splendor, remember, splendor, hod, brilliance, radiance, beauty, tiferet, of all lights of the universe that he did not fix on me. So basically what we have here is he's enlarged the size of the world, which means a master of the elemental domain, the domain of space and time. 72 wings, 36 on each side. This is a reference to the zodiac. So in the zodiac, it's divided into 36 subsections called decans, but in some versions, those itself are split in half to make a total of 72. So 36 on one side, 36 on the other, and you have 72 slices of the zodiac. So why is this important? Because the zodiac represents modes of consciousness or the way that we express ourselves. So it's a mastery of expression. It's a mastery of because in those days they believed that the stars and the planets controlled your life. I don't believe that, because but in a symbolic language, that's what we understand it to mean. So basically what this is describing is a mastery, even though it's not put out in black and white. This is ultimately a mastery of the self, a mastery of our patterns, our behaviors, a mastery of our levels of consciousness. And it continues by saying, and he made me a royal crown. So remember, Keter is crown. He made me a royal crown in which were fixed 49 costly stones, like unto the light of the globe of the sun. Why 49? Well, 7 times 7 is 49, and 7 is a very important number. Because why? Why is 7 an important number? It corresponds to the 7 classical planets, which again are about aspects of the personality. Aspects of the personality. By the way, the 7 classical planets are also assigned to the Tree of Life. So you have the moon assigned to Yesod, and to Hod you have Mercury, Venus, the sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. And, again, the tree, it's not like the tree of life, the way we understand it, came out later. But what I'm showing you basically is the tree of life is, so this is a good way to understand what the tree of life is, by the way. I believe it was Lon Milo Duquette who said the tree of life is like a filing cabinet, where you use it as a way to structure information and structure knowledge. And so you can see how, like in Third Enoch, we have things that are being discussed, like these different aspects of consciousness and planetary influences, things like that. And we can assign them to the tree of life, and it's helpful that way as a map, as a way to conceptualize it. But it's always important to remember that it's a map. What these things that we talk about, they're about tapping into levels of consciousness. And that's what the tree of life is. It's a technology for accessing aspects of consciousness, because it's a map. Now, that doesn't mean that it reveals objective truth, but what it does mean is that it's a tool for connection to your inner self. And when you develop your inner self, this is what allows you to evolve and transform and reach higher and higher levels of consciousness. And that's what it's all about, reaching higher and higher levels of consciousness. And why do we even give a shit about reaching higher and higher levels of consciousness? Well, so that we can create a better life and a better world. That's the whole point of all this. This is necessary for us to I mean, look how much awful shit is going on in the world right now. Well, this is a product of a very low state of consciousness, in a state of disconnection. We've created hell on earth. The billionaire class are the manifestation of the archon's influence in the world. And so it exists in a hellish state, but it doesn't have to be that way. When we achieve higher levels of consciousness, we are able to create the world in our image. to create the kingdom of heaven right here and now. And so in the Neo-Genian system, that's about creating a teleocratic planetary civilization, a teleocracy. A teleocracy is a purpose-driven society and a planetary civilization. And so what's the purpose? To maximize quality of life for the individual and the collective. Maximizing quality of life. That's what it's about. But it requires necessarily a higher level of consciousness. Simple self-awareness, which is what most humans are at, but you can evolve past that. Absolutely, 100%. You have the ability. I want to try and always demystify this stuff that seems like, oh, you have to go meditate in a mountain for 50 years or be special and chosen by God or something like that. No, it's like anything else. You can get to these levels if you work at it. Just like if you want to lift something heavy, you have to train. And it's hard work, but you can do it. It's not this mystical thing that only the chosen can do. You can do it if you put in the work. And this is what the work is. The work is about balancing these aspects of the self and developing these aspects of the self to be able to reach higher levels of understanding. And then you can go beyond simple self-awareness to what in the Neo-Genian system we call all-awareness, which is a precursor to hyper-awareness, which is about understanding the connectivity of each other, the self, and the world, and how we are in the context of self and universal transformation. Like that's our goal here. Everyone's trying to escape. This is not about escape. We have a shit world because anyone who would try and make the world better is focused on escape. I mean, think about it. You know, you have Buddhists that want to reach nirvana. You have Christians that want to go to heaven. You have atheists who just think we rot in the dirt after we're dead. When that's not the case. We are localized here again and again and again for the purpose of creating a new world right here and right now. That's the whole point. It's not about escape. That's really silly. There is no such thing well, I'm not going to say there's no such thing as escape, but escape is contrary to what is required to go through the process of evolution. It's like going to school. When you go to school, it's not about escaping school. I know you probably want to sometimes because our education system is trash. But the point is, when you go through school, you should, in a positive system, come out as a well-educated, intelligent individual. Now, that doesn't necessarily happen today because our systems are based on the Prussian school model, which is a factory model, which is basically centers of brainwashing. That's what the school system are. That's what the school system is, centers of brainwashing to create soldiers, workers, consumers, compliant conformists. That's what it is. They don't want you to think. They don't want you to think for yourself. They don't teach you how to think in school. They teach you what to think, not how to think. They teach you what to think. When you get to some higher level education in college, that perhaps changes, but it's usually not very emphasized. It's like you learn that in philosophy, but guess what? Most people don't even know what philosophy is. And philosophy is considered one of the most like useless degrees that you can get, which reflects on the state of the world. Anyway, I'm getting way off course here. Let's continue. Basically, what's going on here is that Metatron is describing his transformation from a human into an angel. And what I'm doing is I'm showing you how we can use the Tree of Life to understand that development and apply it to our own lives. And apply that transformation to our own lives. And so Metatron continues by saying, for its splendor went forth into the four quarters of the Arabath Rakia and in through the seven heavens and in the four quarters of the world, and he put it on my head. Okay, so you have the four quarters of the world and the seven heavens. That's where the light of the crown reaches. The seven heavens and the four quarters of the world. The seven heavens, the seven planetary spheres, like I said, the four quarters of the world, we have the four elements. And that's on the Tree of Life as well. So in the Tree of Life, the four elements are located in Malkut. So you'll often see Malkut divided like this. And that's because we have the four elements. So the four elements are here, and then you have the planetary influences. So the four elements, and then the moon, Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. And so when he's talking about his crown reaching the seven heavens, his crown reaching the seven heavens and the four quarters of the world, this is essentially mastering all these different things. Remember, they're influences. So what are the four elements? Well, the four elements are air, fire, water, and earth. So, but we have to remember that these are symbols for aspects of the psyche. So fire is willpower, air is intellect, earth is groundedness and practicality, and water is emotion and intuition. And it's found here because they impact what? Malchut is our behavioral patterns. That's what Malchut is, it's the kingdom. Malkuth or Malchut, however you want to say it, doesn't matter, is our behavioral patterns that are influenced by the four elements, meaning influenced by our will, intellect, emotion, intuition, and groundedness and practicality. So when achieving the levels of when reaching higher levels of consciousness, the first thing you need to do is master the four elements. That's the first aspect of reaching higher levels of consciousness, is mastering the four elements, which are, like I said, will. Well, I just said it. I don't have to keep repeating myself. But once you do that, then you move on to the planetary spheres, which are more focused. And so this is what basically these are. It's like mastering behavior, and then when you move on to the planetary systems, you're working with it in a more abstract, direct way. So like Yesod, you're going to find your shadow self, and Tiferet is going to be about understanding how to manage your ego in relationship to your higher self, let's say. So mastering the four elements and the seven planetary spheres, we can see modeled here on the Tree of Life. So let's see. Metatron says, and he called me the lesser Yahweh in the presence of all his heavenly household. And that's a really big deal because God's name is, of course, Yahweh, Yud He Vav He. That's the Tetragrammaton, which is also representative of the four elements, by the way. Yod is fire, He is water, Vav is air, and He final is earth. So that in the esoteric, in the occult esoteric tradition. Hermetic, the Hermetic, Western Hermetic tradition. So let's see. Basically, what this is describing here is a mastery of all the all the influences, all the aspects of the psyche, all the aspects of the self, all the aspects of the soul, being crowned in that splendor. But he continues and says, he wrote with his finger with a flaming style upon the crown on my head with letters. Okay, so God is now with a flaming style in flame. God is writing on the crown of Metatron's head letters by which were created heaven and earth, the seas and rivers, the mountains and hills, the planets and constellations. Letters by which were created all the needs of the world and all the orders of creation. But here, again, you can see the letters that created heaven and earth, the sea and the rivers, the mountains and hills. Very elemental. Earth, seas, mountains. The planets, the constellations, the zodiac. By the way, on the Tree of Life, the zodiac is usually relegated to Chokhmah. So this is where the zodiac is typically located in the Western esoteric tradition, their interpretation of the Tree of Life. So you have here this idea. Okay, so I'll continue here. Every single letter sent forth time after time, as it were, lightnings. So the letters are emanating lightning, energy, time after time, as if it were torches, time after time, if it were by flames of fire, time after time, rays like as the raising of the sun and the moon and the planets. So now we have these letters that are the letters of creation. And we saw this in the, if you haven't seen my video on the infancy gospel of Thomas, go check it out, because in it, Jesus teaches the ABCs as being allegorically the structure of reality. And so this is the idea of the logos, or the word, the programming language of existence, of reality. So these letters are written into the crown like fire, and they're giving off energy. And these are the letters that created the world, the planets, and the constellations. So taking again, look at the tree of life. It's a great way to model this, because we have the earth and the elements, the elemental domain, we have the planets, we have the zodiac. But guess what we also have is we have these connecting paths. And how many connecting paths are there? There are 22 connecting paths. Why is that important? Because how many Hebrew letters are there? There are 22 Hebrew letters. So yeah, we can use the Hebrew letters to assign to each of the 22 paths on the tree of life. Ignore the fact that I've darkened these paths. This is because I was doing another video on the infancy gospel of Thomas and explaining what each of the letters represent and what they do. Okay? But you can see here that now each of the paths are labeled by the letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And so what this essentially means here is that the Sephirot, or Sephirot, they are levels of consciousness, and the paths are channels of energy that flow through and connect them. And each one means a certain thing. I won't get into too much detail about what each one means, because I'm already doing a video on that. Like I said, check out my playlist on the infancy gospel of Thomas to know more. But in a very basic way, Aleph is the first, and it's the breath of life, and it's the foundation of reality, because it flows from Keter to Chokhmah, which is basically pure unity, to its first expression. So this is like its breath, its first expression. That's Aleph. And then Beit means house and its structure, because Binah is structure, logic, and reason, and Keter is unity and foundation technically not foundation. I'm talking in philosophical terms. Yesod is foundation in Kabbalistic terms. The essence of existence. And so the unity, underlying unity of existence. And through Beit, it goes from the unity to structure. This is where unity gets manifest as structure. And we continue on and on and on. Like, for example, Dalet is here, and it connects Chokhmah and Binah, which is Chokhmah is wisdom, Binah is understanding. You can think of Chokhmah as like energy, and Binah, like I said, is structure. So Dalet is where energy goes to get structured in Binah. So you see how, so Chokhmah, energy, Binah, structure. Dalet, the path between them, is energy that becomes structured. Energy that becomes structured. So, like I said, you can see why this, symbol of the tree of life is so powerful, because it really helps us map out in a way that is easily accessible and understood in a visual diagram things that are being expressed in the Book of Enoch, or really whatever you'd like. You can think of the tree of life as kind of like a blank template where you can assign things. So, for example, in the Hermetic tradition, it doesn't just stop with Hebrew letters or elements or planets. It even goes into something like tarot. Why? Because tarot is how many paths are there? There's 22. How many major arcana are there? There are 22 major arcana. So here you have the path of the fool, you have the path of the magician, you have the path of the empress, you have the path of the high priestess. And so this path is the fool, because if you look at the fool card, it's the first step forward into a journey, which is Keter, unity, going to expressed as energy in Chokhmah. And then you have the magician, which is, if you look at the card, it's about everything laid out and structured. And so this is where things become manifest as unity, manifests as structure here in Binah. And then the high priestess is the connection between our ego, Tiferet, and our divine self, the mediator, which represents our connection to that. So anyway, the reason why I put this here is to show you how you can make all these different correspondences, because, and then see how they work together. So you would have, this path here, it's associated with the fool, but it's also associated with the Hebrew letter Aleph. The Magus is, or the magician is this path here and is associated with the letter Binah, et cetera, et cetera. The letter that's associated with the high priestess is Gimel, which means camel, because it's a journey across a void or a desert, a journey across the abyss, et cetera. So basically what I'm trying to get across here is that the Tree of Life is this template that you can use to map out and make connections between things. Why? Because your unconscious communicates in symbolism. And so you're learning a language to communicate with your unconscious mind. And so, like I said, like when you are first starting out, the first thing that you do is you master the 4 elements. And the 4 elements involve understanding your mind in 4 broad parts and understanding how to get them clear and under control. And so that's why in a lot of magic systems, one of the first rituals you learn is called the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram, because the pentagram represents the 4 elements. There's a 5th element that is hidden, which is spirit, but it represents the 4 elements. And then you work with the 4 archangels, because the 4 archangels are the 4 elemental angels in terms of that system there, whereas Raphael is air, Gabriel is water, Michael or Michael is fire, and then Uriel is earth. And so you can see if you're invoking archangels, what you're really doing is you're partitioning your psyche into 4, you're invoking the 4 archangels, which means you're partitioning your psyche into 4 aspects and learning how to work with them, clear them from negative influences of the psyche, et cetera, et cetera. So, and why would we do this? Why, some people, oh, it's nonsense. Why are you even doing this with angels and whatnot? Because it's how your unconscious communicates with symbolism. It doesn't communicate through linear language. It doesn't communicate through math. It doesn't communicate through reason. It doesn't communicate through logic. It communicates with meaning and symbolism. Meaning and symbolism is how our unconscious communicates. That's why we do things with archangels or elements or planets. It's not literally about angels or planets in the sky. Planets in the sky doesn't matter. Instead of the 7 planets, you could do the 7 metals. Instead of Saturn, you could talk about lead. Instead of the sun, you could talk about gold. Instead of the moon, you could talk about silver. So these are just, you're learning a language to communicate with your unconscious. And you can make, connections to all these things as well. You don't have to, but you can. So let's continue here. I'm getting way off topic. Okay, so we have Metatron being crowned with the letters. And Metatron continues by saying, all the highest princes, the elementary angels, angel of the elements, and the planetary, angels of the planets, and sidereal, stars, zodiacal, angels, fear and tremble at the sight of Metatron crowned. So all these angels that represent states of consciousness, which we just talked about, because yes, you could assign angels to all these, by the way, right? Like I just talked about Raphael, Michael, Uriel, Gabriel being assigned to the 4 elements, but then you have angels assigned to the 7 planets as well. So basically, the elementary angels, the planetary angels, and the zodiacal angels are all in fear and trembling at the sight of Metatron crowned. Why? Because Metatron is a master of these things. Because all of these represent aspects of the psyche, aspects of the mind. Metatron has mastered his will, his intuition, his emotions, his groundedness. He has mastered his Mars severity. He has mastered his Jupiter giving mercy. He has mastered his Sun, the ego. He has mastered his Saturnian Saturn implementation of boundaries. You see, that's what we're really talking about here. When we're talking about the elementary angels, the planetary angels, the zodiacal angels, we're talking about emotion, intuition, power, severity, mercy, boundaries, intellect, learning how to manage, develop, and balance. You have to develop and balance them. That's the whole point. If they're not balanced, then you fall into the abyss and you're no longer working with the tree of life, you're working with the tree of death, which is a whole other topic. I have a whole video on the tree of death. Yes, there's a tree of death, and that's what happens when you're out of balance. So, Metatron is being transformed because he is the master of these things. Even Samael, the prince of the accusers, who is greater than all the princes of kingdoms on high, fear and trembled before me. So Samael means venom of God and is the angel of death. And I just mentioned, by the way, that the tree of death, well, Samael is a kelipot on the tree of death, which basically means, for example, here, Hod, we have intellect, splendor. If Hod is unbalanced, it becomes Samael. Now, I just want to say, as a kind of like a disclaimer or whatever, the assignments that I'm talking about are different from tradition to tradition. So, because remember, none of this is objectively true. It's a tool that is useful. And some people will organize the tree of life differently and make different correspondences because that's what resonates with them. But that's okay. I'm just pointing it out. If you happen to look this up later and you find different assignments, that's why. There are different assignments because different people organize it in different ways. But that doesn't make it any less effective because that's the whole point. So anyway, Samael trembles before Metatron, prince of the accusers. The accuser, or the adversary, Hasatan, so prince of the Satans. In the Christian tradition, Samael is equated to Satan. In the Zohar, Samael is the partner of Lilith. Even the angel of fire, the angel of hail, the angel of wind, the angel of lightning, the angel of anger, the angel of thunder, the angel of snow, the angel of rain, the angel of the day, the angel of the night, the angel of the sun, the angel of the moon, the angel of the planets, and the angel of the constellations who rule the world under their hands, feared and trembled and were affrighted before me when they beheld me. Because he has power over them. He commands them. All these aspects of reality reflected in us in the structure of our psyche and consciousness. As above, so below. And that's what you're doing when you're working with angels or demons. These are all aspects of you. And you begin to reach these higher levels of consciousness, which is how you become an angel. Reaching an angelic level of consciousness. Because that's the idea here, is that, like, look, humans are pretty much done evolving physically. We're evolving mentally now. And humanity is going from a transitional phase from self-awareness to all-awareness, which is a precursor to hyper-awareness, which in the Neogenian system, that's the system that I follow, the whole goal, or one of the major goals, is to create a new humanity and a new earth through a new consciousness, literally evolving the consciousness of humankind. And once again, I want to make it very clear that you can achieve this. It's not something that it's not about going meditating in a mountain for 50 years, like I said. It takes work, but you can achieve it. How do you achieve it? By mastering these aspects of yourself. If you master your intellect and you master your intuition will connect you to higher levels of consciousness, while your reason and intellect will be able to organize it into a coherent pattern, and you will literally develop a new structure in the psyche. In the Neogenian system, we call it the analog all. So this is not abstract, like, oh yeah, just activate these particular, no. You are literally, by cultivating these different aspects of yourself, like as an example, I mentioned reason and intuition. If you have just intuition by itself, sure, you'll be connected to aspects of reality, but you won't be able to organize it. It'll be a mess. You'll make connections that aren't really there. You won't be able to tell fact from fiction. What I'm talking about here, then, and likewise, if you just had reason with no intellect, or I'm sorry, reason with no intuition, then you could organize things, but you would have no aspects of consciousness to organize. Be very dead and mechanical. So you need both intuition to connect you, reason to organize what you encounter, and that will develop a new structure in the psyche. Literally. The analog all. Because through intuition and reason, intuition will connect you to the source of reality. Reason will allow you to organize that information into a pattern. That pattern is a new structure of the psyche. That pattern is the analog all. Right now, humans just have the ego pattern, the analog I. It's not a bad pattern, but it's ultimately a pattern of separation. I am separate. I am I, you are you. The analog all develops in addition to the analog I, or the ego. It doesn't erase it, doesn't get rid of it. I am I and you are you, but we are connected in one system. So I really want to hammer this point home, that this is a literal psychological development occurring in humanity, and you can achieve it. Okay. And it says, and all the angels fell prostrate when they saw me, and they were not able to behold me because of the majestic glory and beauty of the appearance of the shining light of the crown of glory upon my head. So yeah, he's flexing. Metatron is showing off. And I'm just checking here to see. There was a little more that I wanted to talk about, but I'm looking at the time. and I'm seeing I'm going over the time that I wanted to reach anyway. So I think we're going to end it there. There's more we could talk about. If you want more on Third Enoch, let me know. Tell me in the comments. But I hope you enjoyed this. As always, let me know what you find helpful, what you like, and if you have questions, please ask them, because that really gives me a guide to know what content to create, because I need to know what things are clicking, what things may not be, what things may need more explanation, etc. So as always, my friends, remember, this is way more than a channel. So spread this like fire so we can make higher consciousness go viral. That's what we're doing when I say that. That we're literally here to make a new structure of the psyche develop throughout humanity. That's what we're doing literally here. And I know I keep saying literally, but because I think the problem is people think about this too abstractly and too mystically sometimes. But this is a very real phenomenon. Okay. What was I saying? Like, subscribe, share, spread it. Follow me on Spotify. That's a great way to reach more people over there on Spotify. If you want to help out even more, become a member. You get access to free downloads on Kabbalah, alchemy, ritual work, and members only videos. There's tons of them, hundreds, I think, at least over 100. There's a lot. You can also check out my books if you're interested in the Neo-Genian system. I have a 5-part series on it. Links to all those things are in the description of this video, my friends. Big shout out to everyone who supports, especially Renaissance Sari, Cassidy, Angela, Dallas, Nusalina, Eric, Sandy, Soul, Vivian, Toronado, Son of God, Banshee, Pop Out, Hypersan, everyone else. If you don't see your name up there, I need to update it. Thank you all very much. My name is Morgue, and I am Neo-Genian. Ad Astra.